Yo, we just people from the north side. Once the Timmy's hit the shore fine. Winter ready on the full ties. Heavy traffic during 4-5. Gotta hustle on your own time. Color people every port side. We just people from the north side.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's your host, your boy George Mackay, with another pre-recorded classic. And with me today, I got a special guest. I got someone who I admire in the wrestling world, and I found out recently before in our communications, knows who I am before I even had to ask her on the show, which is pretty damn cool. But without further ado, as you can see her on the screen, Miss Ella J. How are you, madam?
I am so good. Yeah, like I said off air, I had just been covering one of your interviews a couple days before you reached out. I was like, heck yeah. So I'm excited to be here.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, you know what? I'm excited. It's always great to talk to somebody else who's in like the media game, like I am, somebody who's hustled, somebody whose journey has been a little bit of an inspiration. And it's kind of cool to see, starting from a Wrestling Gal podcast to being a full-time writer now for not just one, but so many different websites. We're not going to call them dirt sheets anymore because dirt sheets is not a thing, but so many different websites. I mean, your journey's kind of been out there, and I know that a lot of people know stuff, but there may be some people in my fan base that don't know. So let's talk about the beginning. Let's talk about before a Wrestling Gal podcast. Let's talk about a girl who just discovered and fell in love with pro wrestling.
Yeah, 2000, and it was the summer of 2009. So it'll be 16 years this summer. I was sixth going into seventh grade. I still sometimes wish I found it younger because I feel like I missed out on like the ruthless aggression era, and I was too young for the attitude era. I was born in 97, so I was like very young during that time. But I was flipping through channels on a Friday night. Friday Night SmackDown came across. It was a loser leaves town steel cage match between CM Punk and Jeff Hardy. Jeff's last match before he returned in 2017. Right before Punk's kind of ascendance, it was in the middle, right before Straight Edge Society. Saw a guy with cool face paint. I was like, who is this? It was Jeff's on his way out. I kept watching SmackDown. DX was there. Mickie James was a big one. John Morrison. And then, just WWE I fell in love with. I also discovered TNA on New Year's Eve 2009. It was a knockouts only special. Just again, flipping through channels, Spike TV came up. I miss Spike TV.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I was like, there's wrestling outside of WWE. So then I started watching TNA. And then like the week after that, Jeff Hardy came back to TNA. A couple days after I found TNA, I was like, oh, this is cool. I get to see Jeff again. And now here we are. But I was hooked like right away. I was flipping through channels, and it was a big escape especially for an awkward preteen in middle school. Gave me a lot of comedy, a lot of laughs. Definitely a big escape. And I appreciated the athleticism, of course, too.
Yeah, everyone always says the escape factor, and that's the same thing for me. In my pre-adolescent, now mind you, my teenage years were well before your teenage years. When you were a teenager, I was actually starting a family, already had a daughter, so things like this were cooking and were happening. But you know what? I look at wrestling has always been an escape. Wrestling has always been there, especially when it reminds me of like when life gets hard. You have your superheroes to cheer for. And the great thing is that these heroes are actually tangible. They're not somebody you can read off a comic book that is now tangible, but these are living, breathing heroes that are tangible for you to cheer for. Doesn't matter who you cheer for. It's because you cheer for them because you love them, whether they're good, they're bad, anything and everything. So, I mean, Jeff Hardy, early influences, I can see that and stuff like that. But when you broke in and you started the Wrestling Gal podcast, knowing that there wasn't a whole lot of females covering, and you had a tough mountain to climb. Like there's only a few names. And even still now, even though there's a little bit more, there's still only a few names that really paved the way in terms of media for females. Looking back at where you started to where you are now, did you think the journey would be so quick?
Absolutely not. I started a Wrestling Gal July of 2019. So it was like less than a year before the big surge during the pandemic. It was like right before that, because like after that, it became so saturated because we were all sitting at home and everybody decided to do podcasts. But no, I absolutely did not expect it to kind of take off. It just kind of started as a hobby because I had finished my bachelor's, and I was like, I don't really know what I want to do. So I was like, I'm going to take a year or a semester off before maybe going to grad school. So I was just working a shoot job in retail, shoot job as they call it. And then I was like, I need something else to fill my time. I'd always been like on like the IWC, as they say, but I was like, I wanted somewhere else to like talk about this. So I started my own podcast. And did I expect it to kind of pave the way for a full-time career? Absolutely not. It just started out as a hobby.
I love that though, right? With something when it's unexpected and you just do it because you love it, or it's something to fill kind of a time slot that you have open. You're like, I got this hour that I could be doing something with. I might as well give it a shot. And then now it's become, like you said, a full-time career. And you know what's funny is that you talk about the IWC, but you left out the fact that it was on Twitter, which is so toxic in a lot of ways. But you found a way to make Twitter not so toxic, which is pretty damn impressive. I will say that.
I was on Stan Twitter, as they call it. I was on other platforms before Twitter, but I've always been a part of the IWC, whether it's through like, you know, chat pages, blogs, Twitter since like 2012. I've been a part of it. YouTube and all of that. So yeah, no, I was a part of Stan Twitter for a couple of years and then transitioned, you know, once I started doing this full time, I was like, all right. You know, obviously I'm still a fan and stuff, but now it's more kind of like professionally aimed. At least I tried to be, but you know, you can't like not be a fan, you know, so we all still have our moments.
Absolutely. And that actually, see, this is a great thing about being with another interviewer. You're cooking in the segues. I love it.
Yeah.
Being a fan and who you've interviewed now and what you've experienced, the events you've gone to, what was kind of like the inside your like adolescent teenage girl coming out being like, oh my God, I just interviewed this person. Like, who was that for you?
So anybody who knows me knows the introduction to women's wrestling that I had, which is kind of the majority of my work nowadays, was Mickie James. And then now I've gotten to work with her when they were doing GAW TV. I'm now friends with her. I've gotten to help her book a couple of her women's pay-per-views. So she's definitely a big one where I was like 11, 12-year-old me was like looking up to her. Like she was my like big, you know, women's idol. And now I'm like friends with her and gotten to work with her has been insane. But like I've gotten to technically, I don't know if you count it, but I've done some of the NXT media calls. Shawn Michaels is my favorite of all time. And to be invited to a couple of those and getting to ask him a couple questions has been insane. So I would say definitely Shawn, and not a formal interview, but you get to ask him questions on the media calls. He's definitely one where I'm like, wow, like little 12-year-old me would have never imagined that.
Yeah, that's pretty insane. I mean, for me, I think my geek out moment would be Triple H. Like if I met Triple H, I don't know what I would do. Like that's been, and I'm like an OG Triple H fan. I'm talking Terror Rising days. Okay. Not just, oh, Triple H, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, DX. No. Yeah. I'm talking like the early days.
I've gotten to meet Triple H and shake hands with him. And, he's been at some of the press conferences that I've been at. I don't think I've officially asked him a question, but I've gotten to shake his hand and been in the same room as him. So that was pretty cool because DX is my favorite tag team of all time. So.
And it's a great tag team to be fans of. Listen, if you put your fandom for Shawn Michaels and my fandom for Triple H, we've got our own tag team right there.
I'm here for it. I mean, I call myself an honorary Canadian too as well because I'm like 15 minutes from the Peace Bridge. So like we could make this work.
We absolutely could. I mean, think about it. We could just take over that snow belt that's from Buffalo all the way up through Hamilton. We could rock that out. No problem.
I agree.
We could be representing the snow belt, which people don't get a love. Hey, speaking of which, did you get dumped with like 30 centimeters today? Like we did?
It not as much today, but like yesterday and Saturday were crazy.
Yeah.
But like honestly, it's not that much. It was maybe like 4 to 6 inches.
Okay.
That is nothing compared to like the 4 to 8 feet that we've gotten before. Like,
that's true.
So that was nothing, honestly. Once we get into like the feet, like 1 feet, 2 feet, then that's a little different. But yeah, I
always love when I hear like people like being like, man, we got like, it was crazy. We got like, an inch. I was like, an inch. That's a summer day.
Y'all, I know. Like, I get it though. Places like Texas, they're not used to it. So they're not prepared. They don't have like plows going down. Like, they're not prepared for it. So I get it. I was like, inch is nothing, bro. Once we get to the feet, that's where I'm like, okay, maybe this is a little much.
Try opening your front door in the morning to try to get out to your car and being like, I got to shovel to my car. Then I got to shovel my car out and then come talk to us. Okay. We know what we're talking about.
Exactly.
So I want to talk about the booking aspect too, because you mentioned it, which is another great segue for that. Being able to, I guess, dip your toe into that aspect, because that's a different side of the business. Before you're covering it, you're discussing it, you're interviewing, but then you're getting a chance to go behind the scenes and kind of put your stamp on certain things. Was there a lot of pressure for you when it came to the booking side of stuff? Or did you just be like, knowing you, I just feel like you just went in, you were like, well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because it's what I got to do.
Well, yeah. So like at first, women's wrestling, I feel like really confident in, like, that was my thing. So like getting to help Mickie James on like not one, but two, like I'm assuming you're talking about that, like helping her book 2 pay-per-views. Yeah. It was a little surreal. I was like, oh, she's trusting me with this. I was like, but also at the same time, that kind of wore off pretty quickly because I know what I'm talking about. And like, I know the women's wrestling community. That's why she kind of looked to me for that. And obviously she makes the final decision, but I do have to say, like, I mean, I don't want to say I helped a lot, but some of my ideas and people that I suggested were booked for the show. And I don't know if I haven't really said this, but for Empower, I obviously helped her with that. That I was the one who gave her Masha Slamovich's name for that. And she looked her up and then booked her. And then because of that, she told Gail Kim about Masha Slamovich. Gail Kim offered Masha Slamovich a contract on TNA. So I don't want to take credit for Masha being in TNA, but it's pretty cool knowing I was a little bit a part of that journey to getting her to TNA.
Hey, listen, absolutely. I mean, listen, what Masha Slamovich has done in her TNA run has been epic. And I mean, I look at Masha Slamovich as somebody, again, who the journey was crazy, because I interviewed her when she was just getting her feet wet. She had just come back from her first like Colombian tour. And then I interviewed her when she's in Japan, stuck over in Japan during the pandemic. And we were talking about what she would eat when she first came back stateside. Yeah. And then you see now that she's in TNA and she's absolutely killing it. And it's great, too, because it's like you look around at wrestling right now. When you got into it with the podcasting stuff, like you said, COVID kind of really changed things up and how, I guess, companies saw each other. All of a sudden, it wasn't just like, we're not the only person in this bubble. We're not only going to talk about being the only person in this bubble. We are going to recognize everybody else. And then it's like, we're going to throw digs at each other, but not really throw digs at each other. And then now we're going to get past all that and realize, you know what? I could work with you. I could be creatively in control of something new and different. And being inside of that with the media aspect, I mean, how cool is that, especially with the WWE TNA partnership? Like, you're being able to we're all being able to experience something that as kids or on the IWCs back in the day on the original dirt sheets, when we talked about those on the original, these were literally just fantasy bookings that we would be discussing. And now it's happening. It's crazy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like these partnerships, like you would have never imagined. Like, I mean, you had TNA and AEW a couple of years ago. You have AEW and New Japan. You have WWE and Pro Wrestling Noah. Like, and they've done like some GCW stuff, and now you have TNA and WWE. For me, that's the most exciting because those were the first 2 companies I ever started watching. I was like, this is so exciting. And now you have some former WWE stars, like we just saw Dirty Dango, or JDC. On NXT, you just had Nick Nemeth and Ryan Nemeth vying for the NXT tag team. It's like, it's a crazy world. There's so many possibilities nowadays. You never would have imagined that years ago. Never.
No, I wouldn't have imagined until Mickie James was the first kind of crossover into WWE being the Knockouts champion. To see her come back to Royal Rumble, that was incredible. And I got to ask, because I'm a Mickie James fan as well as you, and I see her career, and I think, LFG, she's part of the Legends team now on that. She's coaching there. She's got her, like, I honestly believe that a Hall of Fame is bound for her, but I feel like this year is a strong possibility just with everything. She's kind of, the last few years, she's really put her stamp on the pro wrestling industry. Do you feel like I do? Are we going to see her announced in this year's class? I'm hoping so. I'm not asking you to spoil anything, but I'm hoping so.
I hope so, but it's also pretty rare. Like, besides last year, where I mean, we never get two women's inductees in the same year, and they just announced Michelle, which I'm very happy about. Michelle was the other half, well, I guess a third of the first ever women's storyline I saw. She was a big part of that. So that's really cool to see. Mickie and Victoria, like, are big ones that I am like shocked have not been in. I think if this year is not it from Mickie, like next year absolutely has to be. Like, she's doing this LFG stuff. She's being promoted for this brunch event during WrestleMania weekend. She was just at Royal Rumble weekend. She's been invited to a lot of shows. So if it's not this year, then like next year, and I think is rumored to be New Orleans, would be a pretty cool thing. Like, it has to be within the next 2 years, I feel like she deserves to be inducted.
Oh, 100%. And you know what? Even though we've never had two women, I mean, there's a first for everything, Ella. You know this.
That is true.
So I'm putting it out there. I'm putting it out there in the universe. Mickie James will be announced in this year's Hall of Fame class. And if not, I'm okay with it next year. And next year, she better be the headliner, because I feel like there's a lot of great stories that she could share. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Mickie James is someone who, the more I learn about her and the more I see her in her like leadership kind of legend era that she's in now, the more I just respect the hell out of her, man. I respect the hell out of this, especially that. Yeah, especially that TNA run, man. That final TNA run, like the last road. Like me and my daughter got a chance to interview her during that, and it was freaking special. And it was just a moment that I'll hold true knee deep in my heart. Mickie James was always on my bucket list, and to be able to sit down with her. I mean, I can't call her a friend, but I could say I had her on my show, so that's pretty damn cool. But I honestly feel like Mickie James is someone who I feel like's been left off that class list too long, and it needs to change.
I agree. We're getting the little seeds there. But I do have to say, if she is inducted, then I have to book a last minute flight to Vegas, because I told her like I will be there. So if it happens, I'm hoping Vegas prices are low, because then I got to fly just for that.
You know what? It's fine. At the end of the day, you know, even if you rent a car and you drive the 30 some odd hours, it'll be okay. It'll be worth it. It'll be worth it. You know, just a whole lot of Red Bull and a whole lot of jerky snacks, and you'll be good. You Slim Jims, Red Bull and Slim Jims. That's road trip food right there.
That's true.
A couple more questions, and I'll let you go enjoy the rest of your day. But when you look at pro wrestling as it stands now, we talked about, I guess, the different avenues that people are exploring and the different things that people are exploring. Could we see something special happen at Royal Rumble? Like or at WrestleMania, there were whispers that Jey Uso might have even potentially gone after Joe Hendry. But then I see Joe Hendry planting the seeds of John Cena, but John Cena's on his farewell tour and he wants to go for his 17th title. But again, a 17th world championship could be any world championship. The TNA world championship could be in there. Could we potentially see, if John Cena doesn't pull it out at Elimination Chamber in a couple of weeks, could we potentially see Joe Hendry and John Cena at WrestleMania for the TNA title? I mean, it's crazy to think about, but it's not impossible.
It is not. I would say if WWE hadn't explicitly said that their partnership is NXT talent, then I would feel more confident in it. At WrestleMania, I think like a Joe Hendry, I think Joe Hendry is more likely to be on a stand and deliver that weekend than WrestleMania. But then again, you can never say never. My thing is I don't know if WWE, yes, it's technically a 17th world title in his career, but does WWE recognize that as a 17th world title WWE wise, you know, because it's a different company technically too. Like, I don't think he overtakes Ric Flair then, for the record, because it's technically a different company. So I don't know, but I do absolutely hope we get that match at some point. I think John Cena going to TNA would be like way more crazy. Honestly, I'm kind of more here for that, because nobody would imagine John Cena actually stepping foot into TNA. I think that would be the bigger shock than like a WrestleMania match personally. But I know Joe Hendry has been wanting it. He looks up to John Cena. They're both get very big pops. I think the people would love it. I don't want to say unfortunately, because it's a good thing, but I feel pretty confident that John is winning Chamber, because the reports are of him and Cody. Does he win that 17th world title at WrestleMania against Cody, though? I don't know. But yeah, I absolutely do believe that Joe Hendry versus John Cena is a real possibility. Maybe just not at WrestleMania.
All right, fair enough. Hey, listen, the location of my booking may be wrong, but it still would be pretty cool. And I think that
Absolutely.
WWE would recognize that title just because Ric Flair's title runs do have a couple NWA championships.
True.
So
True.
I feel like a world title is a world title is a world title. That's the way I would look at that. But you're going to be here for Elimination Chamber. So you've already speculated that John Cena will pull out the stops to win the men's Elimination Chamber. But I want to because this is going to drop the week of Elimination Chamber. This is going to drop the Wednesday before Elimination Chamber.
Okay.
So I want to pick your brain on the women's Elimination Chamber. Who you got?
So before I was like Io Sky, right? But then they announced Io versus Rhea in my hometown 2 days after Elimination Chamber. So now I'm like, I think it might be a triple threat because they're saying like Bianca has been discussed to face Rhea, but I think Io would be in that like something crazy is going to happen between Io and Rhea. I feel like I'm going to be happy to see it regardless, because they're in my hometown for Raw. But I think like Bianca, I mean, I would hope Roxanne, like we're recording this, Raw's tonight. They still have one more spot. I would love for Roxanne Perez to win, but first she has to even get in. She first has to defeat Raquel. I think Rhea and Roxanne would be really, really fun. It would really be a first too, because so technically I guess Rhea and Charlotte were the first NXT call up coming up to face it. But I think Roxanne winning the chamber would be really cool and really set a standard. Like she would have the biggest call up, I think, in like WWE history if she then went on to face Rhea. But I think realistically, it's probably going to be Bianca and then Io and Rhea in a triple threat. So I think Bianca wins chamber, but it's also like, how do you get the tag title? They've made it more complicated for themselves. Like, how do you get the tag titles off of Bianca and Naomi? It's probably going to be Liv and Raquel beating them, but how do you get them off if you have Bianca win chamber and then go on to face Rhea? Like, there's a lot of complications here, as you can see.
Yeah, the lines aren't crossing. You know what? You're right. But I honestly thought with the Jade Cargill situation, I thought they were going to turn Bianca heel. They made it seem like it was going. Yeah, they made it seem like it was kind of going. I thought maybe she turned her back on Jade, and then I thought maybe Jade would come back at Chamber, screw Bianca out of winning the Chamber, then have the grudge match at Mania. But I mean, Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley, I think that's got top billing for sure. And you know what? Roxy, I'm all there for Roxanne Perez, aka formerly known as Roxy back in the ROH days. But you know what? I mean, I would even say that if that happened, her call up would compare to Kevin Owens, because Kevin Owens came up. And like when he beat John Cena, my jaw hit the floor because I'm a big KO fan. I love Kevin Owens. I mean, come on, man. He's Canadian. He's Canadian born and bred. You got to love KO. You got to appreciate him.
I think Bianca wins and then Naomi is jealous because she didn't get that opportunity, or Bianca wins by pinning Naomi, and then that's going to fuel them, eventually losing the titles to probably Liv and Raquel, and then Bianca's free to kind of go on her singles path, But I think the Mania match is going to be a 3-way between Bianca, Io, and Rhea. Like, I mean, I'm just maybe hoping, like, I want Io and Rhea in some form. Obviously, I mean, I'm going to see it in 2 weeks, but, like, I want it on the grand stage, So I think it's going to be a triple threat. They just have to be really crafty in how they get those tag titles off of Bianca and Naomi then.
Well, we're gonna have to wait and see. But I feel like even though they've painted themselves in a corner, it's not an impossible exit. They just got to find it. They just got to find it. That's what they got to do. So, any other predictions for? I mean, coming to Toronto, everybody loves the 6 Elimination Chamber weekend. Rogers Center, it's going to be great. Any other predictions you're looking forward to? Any other matches you're looking forward to on the Elimination Chamber card?
I mean, Trish Stratus, like I don't think I've seen Trish live when she was on that run in 2023. She accompanied Zoe to a match I saw live, but I have never seen Trish like wrestle in person. So this will be the first time I'm getting to see her. Like, great for Tiffany, she, first of all, she is wrestling the person that got her hooked into wrestling at WrestleMania, Charlotte Flair. And then 2, she's now tag teaming with one of her other idols, Trish Stratus. Like, how, like, good for you, Tiffany Stratton. She's living a lot of people's dreams. It's going to be the 25-year anniversary of Trish Stratus is a couple weeks away. So that's going to be a great moment to kind of kick that off right before her anniversary and in her hometown. So I'm definitely looking forward to Trish and Tiffany too.
You know what, Tiffany Stratton and you, they kind of, I mean, the paths kind of mirror, because I mean, think about it. Mickie James was your idol, your friends, your colleagues, and now Tiffany Stratton, she's getting to wrestle her idol. I mean, you can't write stories like this, Ella. You can't. You just can't do it. You guys are living wild lives, and I appreciate being along for that little tidbit, little breadcrumb in the history that is Ella J. Before I let you go, what is the one thing that when you look back at your career thus far, and again, there's so much more meat on your bone, there's so much more time for you to carve out more of a career, but when you look back at certain aspects of where things have happened and how quickly they've happened in the last 6 years, what is something that you're just like, you're still kind of awestruck about?
So I was talking about Empower earlier. Like I already told you, like I helped her recommend and put together some of the card, but I was actually also on the show as one of Melina's paparazzi. That came together very last minute, the day of, a couple hours before. So that was really cool, like getting to prepare. We're all running around where they're taking us backstage. I get to see Melina and Deanna in the zone, like right before they go out there. That was really cool to be able to see them backstage and then also be a part of the actual show. So that to me was really cool. And then also being on the PWI Women's Ranking Committee for 2021. That was really cool to be able to be selected for my knowledge by PWI. You know, we were talking about Full Circle. Like that was a magazine I grew up with. Like besides WWE magazine, like it was always PWI, you know, and getting my name published in there and getting to, you know, be a part of the ranking committee. That was really, really cool.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty cool. And that is why I enjoy this conversation so much, because you made it easy. I didn't even have to do anything. I just sat back and listened to you speak. I loved it. Before I let you go, if there's anybody that's not following the journey that is Ella J, where on the IWC community of social media platforms can they check out and keep up on everything Ella J?
You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky. I'm most active on Twitter. I'm still trying to get a handle for Blue Sky. Like I keep forgetting about it because I've defaulted to Twitter for the last 12 years. And Instagram, I don't post a lot on there. I scroll, but if you want to follow me on there, it's Ella J on all the platforms, and all my links to my projects and podcasts and writing are all in the link in my bio there.
Absolutely amazing. This for me has been a very cool conversation. I'm very excited how easy peasy this was to go, because as you know from the grind of being a podcaster, for every 1,000 no's, you get the occasional yes. Yeah. So thank you for giving me the occasional yes. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And I hope to see you during Chamber Weekend.
Yes, ma'am. I hope so. I hope we can run into each other down there in Toronto. All right, guys, that's it for this one. Peace, love, and wrestling. We'll see you next time. Peace. Thank you so much for checking out our channel. If you like what you saw today, please feel free to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss any of our future videos and content. Also, you could follow us on all social media platforms. On X at _Straight Talk. On Facebook and Instagram at Straight Talk Wrestling. On TikTok at Straight_Talk_Wrestling. And of course, you could follow us on Podbean. Thank you.